we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Winning Strategies for Diversity and Inclusion. I'd like to start by thanking today's speakers. First, from Florida International University, Lakshmi Reddy, Dean of the University Graduate School. And then from Duke University, Melissa Bostrom, Assistant Dean of Graduate Student Professional Development, Hugh Crumley, Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs, and Alan Kendrick, Assistant Dean of Graduate Student Affairs. I'd also like to thank Educational Testing Service for making possible the award that these two institutions have recently received, the ETS CGS Award for Innovation in Promoting Success in Graduate Education. We are grateful to ETS for making possible the award and also the innovations that we'll be learning about today. So first, I'd like to make a few points about the goals of today's webinar. There are several goals. The first is really to share some promising models for diversifying programming in graduate education and to share what strategies these universities have used, which are very different but appropriate to the work on their campuses. A second goal of this webinar, though, is to share advice on preparing a successful proposal for the award. And Cheryl Flagg, who manages the award for CGS, will be on hand at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you might have on preparing a proposal. You can also ask questions of the presenters at the end of the webinar about their strategies for developing their proposals for the award. And finally, I'd like to make everyone aware that we will be sharing a recording of this webinar with today's participants, and you should be receiving the link to the webinar sometime tomorrow or early next week. And with that, I'd like to introduce the first speaker, Dean Lakshmi Reddy, who will begin the first presentation.
Okay, thank you, Julia, and good afternoon, everybody. I am very happy to be with you all this afternoon to share with you some of our experiences with diversity programming. We received the ETS CGS Award in December 2013, and we are very thankful for this award from ETS and CGS. The award has done wonderful things in our efforts to promote success in graduate education, particularly among minorities. As you all know, Florida International University is a Hispanic serving institute. Our student body is dominated by Hispanics. So we have some unique features in our programming that we feel would be of interest to you all. So with that, let me proceed with first some data on the two measures for success that we use here at FIU. And these two are broad measures of success. One is attrition, the loss of students while they are progressing in their career, the numbers of students who give up in the middle of the programs, and of course number two is time to degree completion. These two put together fairly give us a good chance to see how we are doing, and these are relatively easy to put together, and we have an excellent data office within the graduate school which helped us while we were researching for this proposal. Next slide, please. Let me share some data with you on these two measures that we used toward this proposal when we put this together in 2013. We sifted through a lot of data for several years and followed cohorts of graduate students for 3 years, 2007, 8, 2008, 9, 2009, 10, and followed them, kept track of these cohorts to see how they are doing and when they are completing their degrees and whether they are completing their degrees. So of interest to us are the three groups of students, Hispanics, white, and African American students, and female and male students. And we restricted our study to research doctoral as well as STEM disciplines as defined by the National Science Foundation. So this particular slide you're seeing is for all the research doctoral programs. And as you see in the right half of the slide, you see our attrition is a little worse in the case of female than in the case of male students pursuing doctoral degrees. And in the left part of this slide, you see that our numbers of attrition for Hispanic population is very high compared to the white students or African American students. And the reason why African American students seem to do better in attrition is fairly obvious to us when we look at our population of African American students and what kind of programming they have accessible to us. And let me get to that after the next slide, which shows the attrition numbers for the same populations when we consider only NSF STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics degrees defined by National Science Foundation. When we look at that, the difference between African American students and the other groups in terms of attrition is even more striking. So when we look back at what kind of programming is available for the African American students, it's clear to us that the McKnight program that we have in Florida and the funding that we have, or rather a steady stream of funding that we have for that program, allows us to really do a good job of keeping track of the students and having some community-style events for these students. And that was our first, I guess, clue to writing this proposal to ask for some funding to facilitate some kind of community of learners for Hispanic students as well. And of course, between male and female, female continued to do a little worse in time in terms of attrition numbers. When we look at the second measure, next slide, which shows the degree to completion, you'll find out here that community formation is, although it is helping students rather by giving them energy and persistence to continue in the programs, the African American students are taking a longer periods of time to complete their degree, and Hispanics are taking longer than white student population, but not as long as African American students. And there's not much appreciable difference between female and male populations when it comes to time to degree completion. And this, by the way, is averaged for 3 cohorts, and the trend with the 3 cohorts is pretty much the same. If you see the next slide, which shows the time to degree completion for doctoral students enrolled in STEM areas, you will find out pretty much the same results, although you'll find out the African Americans are neck to neck with the Hispanics. They did slightly better than the general research doctoral population from the previous slide. Again, there is some funding effect, there is some programming effect, on the African Americans, and we don't have that luxury in the case of Hispanic students. So with that, in the next slide, we proceeded to propose what we called Agile Academy of Graduates for Integrative Learning Experiences. Let me present to you the philosophy behind it, which is very simple, but which is actually very important to understand what is innovative in what we proposed. What it is it's an effort to integrate three kinds of skills: cognitive, which is what we do a very good job on our campuses, be it in research, be it in curriculum. So this, I think, we all know how to do well. And the interpersonal skills, which by that we mostly understand the communication, oral and written communication. And we tend to have that recognition very well established on campuses. Some of us, most of us, have quite a few professional training opportunities for students to enroll in these communication workshops. And the last, interpersonal skills, which I think we tend to do not as good a job of trying to and make the students understand the importance of, because this got to do with the will to do, as is shown in the next slide. Metaphorically, it got to do with will to do, an ethical sense in research, a passion, a vision, being able to look at the trends in future, and we can't generally seem to find opportunities in either our curricula or in our campus professional programming to do as good a job with these things, or as much with these things as we do with interpersonal skills. So the idea here is to promote integrative learning, or is to try and give an opportunity for the students to demonstrate that they could integrate the interpersonal skills that they gather from a number of professional development workshops we have from across the campus, through the Center for Excellence in Writing, the Center for Oral Communication and Leadership tracks, and all kinds of offices and research integrity services that we provide, workshops that we provide. So we want to see to it that we do not have these fragmented in the minds of the students. Instead, we are giving an opportunity to the students to put them all together. And that's what makes it innovative. In the next slide, I think we took it a little further to show in generic terms why this integration is very important. For example, if you have one without the other two, each of these three paragraphs show you the deficiencies. If we have too much of a will to do and drive, and without having any communication skills, or without having knowledge, then we will be either destructive and dictatorial or chaotic. And interpersonal skills without knowledge is indiscriminate, if not blind, and without having some directed will to do, it is inert, effusive, but not productive. Likewise, we know several examples, and we can see the examples of each of this category, by the way, on evening television news, when we could see how people with tremendous knowledge, but of course the lack of communication skills, or lack of will to do, these ideas are beautiful, but they don't come to fruition. And likewise, we can find and identify different categories, but I think it was very clear to us, as evidenced to us by our sociology faculty and liberal arts faculty, that the integration is well established to be necessary to produce a very balanced leader and a very integrated learner. And in the next slide, the metaphoric presentation goes a little further in our proposal. We show the difference between what happens when we give these elements in a fragmented fashion to students, and we liken that to a bunch of petals separated but bound together. And we would instead like to give this training as an integrated unity. And in all of this, as you see in the next slide, could you go to the previous slide, please? I think there was, yes. Thank you. In this slide, you will see the operational aspects are very extensive. They're simple, but if we want to stick to the philosophy of integrating them, we want to create a sense of community, and we want to create a non-classroom kind of environment. And that's what we have been doing. Essentially, it's a 2-year-long program, and students apply, and it has become a very competitive program because a lot more students want to get in than we could handle during these first two cohorts that we have seen so far. And we choose the students based on the diversity, based on a good, well-balanced representation from STEM disciplines, liberal arts disciplines, social sciences disciplines. And we choose also some international students. Essentially, we want to create that community which, when we assemble them and we meet about 2 Saturdays a semester, this is all voluntary, nobody is being paid. Of course, we pay for all the refreshments and all the materials and some books that we give to the students. So this community that we are assembling at these meetings, we wanted to represent a very diverse community which gives an opportunity for our students to be able to communicate to diverse groups of people and to be able to put their specialty in a way others can understand and in a way that would test their social skills, their networking skills, all of their non-academic, so to speak, skills. So it is self-paced training. We do not give any credits except at the end of 2 years we have a rubric assessment, and of course we have the same kind of rubric assessment before they're enrolled, and we designate them as Agile Fellows, and so they will be noted in their curricular records. But in these 2 years we have a rather structured set of training modules offered to them every semester. One semester is all about communication, written and oral, body language. One semester is about branding. One semester is about leadership skills, time management, and wellness, and a discussion of alternate career pathways. And in the middle of all of this, we invite outside experts belonging to diverse career pathways, so they could speak about their experiences to our group of students. And in all of this, the students also maintain a journal which they will use to reflect and connect the contemporary events with their expertise, and they are asked to share to the extent they want to, they could, with the rest of the group whenever we meet on the Saturdays. And we have coffee clubs as well once a month, and we are trying to, given the tremendous competition we have, increase in numbers, we're trying to keep these coffee clubs online right now. So that, in summary, is the operational aspect of this Agile. And it is simple. We are not trying to offer anything new in terms of professional training opportunities, but we are trying to put all these training opportunities available, about a couple of dozen of them last we counted, in a structured shape or form, and we are trying to put them all together in the minds of the students. And one thing that I failed to mention in this slide is we also expect the students in their last semester to connect all of them together in the context of some community engagement or service, not relevant, not necessarily something that we can easily understand going and cleaning up the highways or freeways, but something that is more relevant to their learning, to their research. It might be a nice article articulated in a local newspaper. It could be a wastewater treatment plant idea that the student will go to the city council and present her or his ideas. So it could take any shape or form. But in the end, we are looking for some demonstration of integration. With that, I believe my time has come to an end. I thank you all very much for your kind attention. And I'm very open later on, I believe, when the other presentation is also over, for any questions, comments, or criticism. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Reddy. We'll now move to the next presentation from the Duke team.
Good afternoon. Let me begin by taking a point of privilege to acknowledge the kind invitation from Ms. Cheryl Flagg and Dr. Julia Kent with the Council of Graduate Schools. The Graduate School at Duke is grateful for the grant from the Educational Testing Service and the Council of Graduate Schools, which we received in December 2014. I am Alan Kendrick, Assistant Dean for Graduate Student Development. I am joined by my colleagues this afternoon, Dr. Melissa Bostrom and Dr. Hugh Crumley, who will introduce themselves later, but on behalf of all of us, we are delighted to share our thought processes with all of you today, our thought processes which really span over a year of time. Our presentation this afternoon will be in 3 parts. I will set the stage for our process for the grant from its origins to our idea. My colleague Hugh will give additional details about the nuts and bolts of how we move from the concept to compilation, and my colleague Melissa, the principal coordinator of our efforts, will give additional information, summarize our efforts, and give helpful guidelines to you as you begin to think about your own grant proposals. Now, our project idea started from an effort to connect our professional development with our recruiting and admissions practices. We are now developing and implementing an online professional development tool, Duke Options, for our current doctoral students as well as our prospective doctoral students. Ultimately, Duke Options will support doctoral students in taking control of their personal professional development agenda, to identify their career paths, to plan and achieve their individual desired goals. Next slide. In the fall of 2013, the Assistant Dean's group, consisting of myself, Dr. Bostrom, and Dr. Crumley, were charged by Dean Paula D. McLean to examine what we were doing in the graduate school that was innovative and might be suitable for the ETS CGS grant. Now, what you see displayed is a truncated timeline from October of 2013 through March of 2014, where we brainstormed about ideas. Actually, our response to the dean was that we needed an additional year to plan. To make a long story short, through the processes that you see listed, we collectively agreed that our professional development initiatives and goals at Duke were robust but disjointed, and we wanted to design a way to bring professional development into the comprehensive fold of the training of graduate students, hence the birth of the idea of Duke Options. Next slide. There are 4 units in the Duke Graduate School: academic affairs, student affairs, admissions, and finance. Advanced slide. Professional development at Duke resides at the intersection of academic affairs and student affairs. Advanced slide. By providing content to support professional development planning to students from application to graduation, we hope to inform a broad range of interested students about the expectations that they will set their own professional development agenda throughout their doctoral studies. The Duke Graduate School has a long-standing commitment to increasing the diversity of its graduate student body with an emphasis on increasing the enrollment from traditionally underrepresented groups. Now, I want to pause here to express the importance of the notions of diversity and inclusion in the ETS-CGS grant language, so it is important that you consider your project's implications for diversity. Our literature review identified barriers to professional development and inclusion. In short, the online tool that we are creating can help to level the playing field for prospective and enrolled students regardless of background, as these students will have an open point of access for gathering information about doctoral study and career possibilities. Furthermore, because we plan to design Duke options using open source technology, it can serve as a model to be adopted by other graduate institutions.
So I'd like to build on what my colleague Alan described in the big picture. My name is Hugh Crumley. I'm Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs in the Graduate School. Next slide, please. You can see here, and this text is far too small to read, so please don't read it. It's there to show you a working document we used in our process. And that's what I'd like to talk about, a couple of specific aspects of our grant application that might benefit your efforts. We took the language from the call for proposals. It's highlighted in yellow in this Google Doc screen capture. And you can see our brainstorm ideas about how our activities and approaches map directly on in that order as it appears in the call for proposals. We're going to talk a little bit more, and Melissa will add some as well, additional suggestions. These are things you might consider, nuts and bolts, if you will, as you're crafting your own proposal. It's very important to consider the language and order that the proposal is presented in, and that it maps onto the call for proposals. Next slide, please. One of our early steps was to find all the existing data sources we could to support and provide context for our activities in professional development as we thought about how Duke options would suit our students' needs. We had a number of existing data sources that we could draw on. We had statistics reporting PhD career outcomes, diversity data, and other publicly available information on our website. It's a screen capture from the Duke Graduate School website. We also had AAU data collected and information and data from the Survey of Earned Doctorates. Additionally, we had an internal biannual survey of graduate and professional student satisfaction. This is internal data that we didn't use in our application, but we used it internally as a kind of benchmarking, so we're able to track how our baseline is as we go forward with Duke options. We additionally identified a couple of areas where we needed data and there was no source for it, so we had to create data collection mechanisms. There is a decline survey offered by the admissions unit at the graduate school, and we added a question about professional development offerings to find out how that might have figured into decisions made by students who were accepted but then did not enroll in the graduate school. We also partnered with the admissions unit in the graduate school to administer an accept survey that had questions parallel to those in the decline survey to find out how professional development offerings might influence students' decisions to accept and enroll. Because we found a gap in the research addressing professional development with respect to a diverse graduate student population, it was important for us not only to build Duke options such that it could provide access to all students, but also to leverage this opportunity to conduct research. With this in mind, we developed two major research questions. Next slide, please. The first question is, how does Duke options impact our recruiting and admissions numbers across all student groups, but with particular interest in underrepresented groups? Next slide, please. Our second question is, what is the impact of involvement in professional development programs on persistence and completion rates among our matriculants?
Thank you, Hugh. I'm Melissa Bostrom, Assistant Dean for Graduate Student Professional Development, and I'll be wrapping up our portion of the presentation. Next slide, please. I'll have some final notes about our proposal development process, an update on the current status of the project, and some tips and strategies that we hope will be useful to you. At the same time that we were developing the analyses and research questions that Hugh just addressed, we were beginning the process of designing the tool that we would eventually name Duke Options. We conducted a needs analysis for the tool, built consensus on the competencies that the tool would address, and consulted with technical experts on the feasibility of the project, including the requirements to integrate our proposed tool with existing campus data systems, as well as with the Duke University Graduate School website, which was being redesigned at that time. We also consulted with our technical experts on the feasibility of a $30,000 budget to build the tool that we had imagined. We're glad to answer more specific questions about this process if anyone has them during the Q&A session. Next slide, please. I'd now like to share a brief status report on the project. Currently, we are on track to meet our goal of launching the Duke Options tool in late 2016. We have developed core questions to guide the user interaction across 6 competencies and during 3 stages of a student's graduate career. The slide that you see is showing a subset of the questions for one of those competencies, teaching and mentoring, in what we've described as stage 1, roughly the first year of a doctoral program, and stage 2, here at Duke we consider that roughly the time leading up to prelims. You'll notice that we pose only a few questions in stage 1, but then add more in stage 2 as students advance in their programs and begin to more clearly define their objectives. In our plan for building the tool in Drupal, students answering these questions would then see a list of answers that include campus, local, and online resources that could help them meet their professional development goals. Students could not only see these opportunities, but choose a few goals and map them against a 5-year calendar to keep themselves on track with their professional development timeline. Our next steps in the project include focus groups with campus units, student groups, and faculty to further develop division-specific resource recommendations for students, whether they're in the humanities, the social sciences, biological sciences, physical sciences, or engineering. And we aim to begin taking bids for the programming and development work early in 2016. Next slide, please. To wrap up our presentation, we'd like to share 4 tips and strategies that are broadly applicable to teams interested in developing proposals for this award. First, as Hugh noted, reading and rereading the call for proposals was central to our process. As a humanities scholar, I might call it close reading, but the practice of returning to the text again and again helped us focus on the priorities of the grant as we brainstormed. Second, leverage existing data wherever you can. The award requires institutional analysis that the graduate school has undertaken to arrive at the strategies your project would implement. You probably already collect data for a number of sources and reports, and that can be useful to you in developing your proposal. You may also need to think about new data collection processes to support your proposal development, as well as proposing assessment metrics that could help you measure the success of your project if implemented. Third, if possible, give yourselves time. As Alan explained, our process actually took place over the course of a year, and 7 months of that time was spent pretty intensively in biweekly and weekly meetings. Fourth, embrace innovation. When we looked at the descriptions of past winners of this award, I wasn't sure that our proposal was going to be competitive because it was so very different from proposals that had won in the past. And we were very pleasantly surprised that the selection committee looked on our proposal favorably and saw promise in it. And so we really thank them for their vote of confidence in our idea. So we would encourage all of you in the audience to think very creatively about ways to support the success of a diverse, inclusive graduate community at your institution. Next slide, please. This wraps up our portion of the presentation, and I'll now turn things back over to Julia Kent at CGS.
Thank you very much to all of the presenters. We will be taking questions, as I mentioned earlier, and we already have the first question. So I'll give this question to Lakshmi Reddy, first of all, at Florida International. How many students are in the program each year, and what are the selection criteria?
Okay, that is a good question. We started off with 20 students with the first cohort, and we are trying to increase that now to about 30. And the criteria for selecting these students are the stage at which they are in their program. For example, if they plan to graduate next semester, we don't select them. But most of them, if not all of them, are expected to be at the beginning of their career. And the program they are coming from, and that needs to be, for example, we want diversity in the program, so we do not accept 100% of students from the College of Engineering or Arts and Sciences. And the aptitude, we expect them to write a statement on why they are interested in this thing and what is their goal in wanting to be associated with their job. And there are some other criteria that we are really contemplating now because the competition, the demand is very high. But at this point, we are rather limited by that small number of students, and we are planning to increase that substantially next year, assuming that we can move some of these things online.
Thank you. We have a version of this question for the Duke team. Will Duke options be available to all graduate students, including PhDs and masters, or is it for a select group of students?
Duke options will be available for all doctoral students. It is designed specifically for our doctoral students rather than master's students.
Thank you very much. We have a question for CGS, and Cheryl Flagg should be on the line to answer this question, we hope. The question is, does it matter if an applicant, an institution applying for this award, already has an existing program that they want to enhance, or is it better to propose to do a brand new program or idea? I think, Cheryl, your line may be muted now, so if you can unmute yourself. Well, it sounds like we're having some technical problems, and so we'll try to hold on that question and see if we can answer it a little bit later. Cheryl, if it's possible to email us an answer, we'll read it out loud. I have another question. What are your plans for assessing the effectiveness of these programs? I'll ask Lakshmi Reddy at FIU the question first.
That's a good question, and we have been thinking about that all along. Our plan is to, we did an assessment of a self-assessment by the students, as well as an assessment by the Executive Committee of Agile, which consists of Vice President of Career Services, Vice President of Research, and some of the center directors, communication center directors, and all that. So our plan is to do the same assessment at the end of the 2 years, and in a way that would allow us to see the differences in not just self-assessment by students, but also an objective assessment from others. And the kind of assessment tool that we used at the beginning and that we'll be using pretty much the same at the end is what is published in that little book by the National Research Council, NRC book. I believe the title is Transferable Skills for Life and Work, the 21st Century. And so they had a really good assessment for all these three kinds of skills. Although they were giving it for undergraduate program, we tried to adapt that and tinker with those things to make it applicable to graduate program. So that's what it is.
Thank you. And the Duke team, do you have an answer to that question on assessment?
Yes, we do. Yes. So our metrics for assessing the success, ultimately, of Duke options. By the way, I'd like to mention or clarify that it currently is a concept and is not yet a tool that we're using. So when it actually goes into use in 2016, we'll be able to assess its success by using 3 metrics. The first would be the increase in awareness of Duke professional development programs and resources by applicants measured through the annual survey of those who decline our offer and a parallel survey of doctoral matriculants. I described those 2 new sources of data that we started collecting. Second, the total number of users among current students and proportionally represented users by broad disciplinary group. That's the social sciences, humanities, biological sciences, engineering, and physical sciences. And third, we'll look at increases in student satisfaction with career and professional development resources as measured by our internal biannual graduate and professional student satisfaction survey.
Thank you. Just a little update from CGS. We seem to have lost our connection with Cheryl Flagg, who is calling in remotely. So what we'll do is, if you have submitted a question about the RFP or the proposal process, we will be sure to get back to you via email with an answer to your question. We have your name and your question, and we will follow up as soon as possible. It sounds like we have several questions about the online component of the Duke program. One question is, can Duke give specific examples of the online development tools? And then secondly, what was the justification of using the online approach? And is it only online? Is there any face-to-face component?
This is Melissa, and I'm not quite sure what the question is about the different models. Oh, Hugh says.
I think as I interpret that question, I've mentioned this Duke Options tool is not to deliver professional development. It's to track students' completion of professional development that we offer in the graduate school, which very largely, 97, 98%, is face-to-face interactive with academic staff and faculty. Does that answer the question better?
I think that's definitely clarifying. Thank you. Are there plans for Duke Options to be expanded to master's degrees?
No, there are not at the moment. We do need to build it first for the doctoral students, and then we can consider whether we want to expand it there. But right now, we feel like doctoral students could be encouraged to start their professional development earlier. Master students usually come in with a shorter timeline, and they are more focused on professional development because they're usually here for 2 years. Doctoral students, because they know they're going to be here for 5 years, sometimes a little bit more, may wait to get started on their professional development. And so one of the reasons that we developed this tool was to get them started earlier and help them map their professional development goals against a calendar and a timeline for themselves.
Thank you. And we now have a kind of parallel question about the Agile program. Is the Agile program a blend of online modules with periodic in-person group reflection? And do both components seem necessary?
What is that last part of the sentence that you just read?
Is it necessary to have a blend of online modules and face-to-face reflection in the Agile program? And I guess the first question is, does the program blend these 2 ways of interacting?
Yes. The answer is yes. We are moving toward, and in fact we proposed that to meet or to reach out to a large number of students, we need to have an online component. And some of the professional training opportunities could be done online. But it will essentially be a hybrid version because we want to promote a community feeling. At least 2 times a semester, we require the students all to be in one room. So it will be a sort of hybrid version. But We right now have only face-to-face because of the small number of students we are starting with. But we are heading in the direction of making some of these components online. For example, CERTL has an excellent online copy club that it uses, and we are trying to copy that to have graduate students do participate online. But since the central theme is about community formation, we do not want to, and we will not go completely away, make it completely online.
Thank you. We have another question. What has the faculty response been to these programs, especially those in the STEM disciplines?
Is that to me?
I'm sorry. I'll start with Duke and then go to FIU.
Sure, this is Melissa. We will be doing focus groups with faculty, and so that will be an opportunity to gauge their interest and engagement with the project. But the faculty that we've talked to about the Duke Options tool so far have been enthusiastic and very receptive of it, and especially in the STEM fields, they see this as an opportunity to enhance or complement, especially for NIH-funded research, the individual development plan requirements and the meetings with faculty. This can be a tool that works side by side with those conversations.
The Duke team also will not only be using focus groups of faculty in the STEM fields, but faculty in the other fields, and also our other stakeholders. So it will be a little bit more comprehensive as well.
Thank you. And at FIU?
This is a very relevant question. We need to be very careful about how the faculty, particularly from STEM disciplines, perceive anything we do at graduate school level. And we were very sensitive to how the faculty would perceive. For example, the initial feedback that came to us from reviewers of our draft, internal reviewers, was all focused on that one question, that look, will our faculty mentors allow their students to be, in their language, drifted away from their research labs to these soft skill training exercises? So what we did was we involved the faculty right from the beginning. In fact, we took their opinions, we took their suggestions, and that is the reason why this did not turn out to be a very structured a curriculum style. You must be here, you must take attendance here, otherwise you're not enrolled. So we have taken some careful measures to avoid those perceptions. And more than anything else, we involve the faculty when a student showed interest when she or he applied to join Agile. We immediately communicate to the faculty advisor, and we keep her or him in the loop. And we look at what we call annual doctoral student evaluations to see if the student is having trouble with everything else and if this is going to be burdensome. So in all cases, the faculty advisors were kept in the loop, and the feedback that we received at the end of 1.5 years of this program has been so positive, and contrary to some of the negative opinions expressed to us by our own faculty, we were very pleasantly surprised that faculty are in sync with what we are doing. This is a very relevant question, and I would strongly suggest people to make sure that they consider faculty perceptions whenever we do, whatever we do with the graduate students in the name of professional training, professional development training.
Thank you. We have a question for the Duke team. Several people have asked for the connection between the program and diversity and inclusion to be explained a little bit more. Can you say a little bit more about how the tool helps advance diversity and inclusion?
Yes, this is Alan Kendrick, and so I'm kind of going back to our thought processes And it essentially, I guess what I need to do is talk about more of our literature review process. However, the long and short of it all was that we found that there were differences in terms of professional development among students of color and regular students. So what we had to decide was how we were going to bridge the gap between what Duke would be doing with its professional development online tool and bridging that particular gap. One of the things that we saw was using the open source technology as well as leveling the playing field. So regardless of background, the online tool that we would be creating would give all students the access point, all doctoral students, let me be clear, to the access point for studying or gathering information about their doctoral study and career possibilities.
This is Melissa, and I'll just add a little bit to that. During the process of writing the proposal, actually, 2 studies came out that were very informative to our thought process. One found that prospective students emailing potential faculty mentors had different rates of response from those faculty depending on the perceived gender and racial or ethnic background of the student, just based on their name. And so that led us to believe that there may also be some differences for graduate students with respect to access to their advisors and faculty in terms of their graduate doctoral career. And so we felt like online access was one way to address that gap. The other piece of research that came out while we were thinking about this project was that STEM PhDs are going into different careers based on their race and gender. And so folks who follow a non-traditional, non-academic career path may make different choices based on race and gender. And that made us wonder as well whether there might be differential access to certain career opportunities that might be shaping those career paths. And so again, we felt that leveling the playing field might be an effective way to make an intervention there.
Thank you very much. I'd like to check to see whether Cheryl Flagg has been able to reestablish her connection.
Yes, Julia, I'm back on.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll ask some of the questions that have come up about the proposal itself. If we're not able to answer your question, we'll follow up by email, not only with the person who posed the question, but with the entire group with a kind of Q&A follow-up. So we've had a number of requests for that. So one of the questions that has come up is whether proposals that propose a new idea rather than proposing to build on an existing program have any advantage in securing funding for the award.
Both types of proposals are accepted. In fact, we encourage both types. We've also encouraged past winners to maybe work on something that they submitted, which they may have begun to do something with, but were not funded. So we do accept both. Neither is given any preference or higher ranking when it comes to considering the proposals.
Thanks very much. And then another question, are proposals related to master's education competitive, or does it have to include both master's in doctoral education or doctoral education explicitly?
No, it does not have to be doctoral only. It can be both. It can be master's. We know that we have a number of members who are more master's focused in their educational programs, and so we want proposals from both, masters and doctorates. So it can be masters only, or it can be doctors only.
Thank you. Another question is, are proposals that focus on one college or program welcome, or should the proposal impact all or most graduate students on a campus?
We accept and welcome proposals for one college or department because frequently that may be the way to start the program and then develop it to become more campus-wide.
Thank you very much. I believe we have covered most, if not all, of the questions about the proposal. I think we have just a few lingering questions about the programs themselves, and as I'm looking through the questions here, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not asking a question that's already been asked. And it looks like we have covered all of the questions. I apologize if I overlooked your question by accident. So again, I'd like to thank everyone who presented today. Thanks to FIU and to Duke. And thank all of you who participated in today's webinar. Again, we'll be following up by email with a recording of the webinar. Thank you and have a good day.